Hi everyone, this is the first PowerPoint for Unit 2, and this one is a short PowerPoint. It has a few basic concepts in here that I want to make sure that you understand about defining project tasks. So if we take a look, the basis of defining a project, every project should be defined as accurately and fully as possible before it can get started. So there's got to be a lot of time at the beginning that the work has to be put in at the beginning to define it as best as possible. Okay, so if you're working for an outside company, or if you're working, the project is for somebody internal, either way, the investor, whoever it is, whether it's money or the resources within a company, they need to know how that money and time is going to be spent and what benefit they could expect in return, right? So they need to know that this project is worth the effort. And even if it's internal, it's not like you're getting paid, but it is money being spent by the company. So the contractors must know the extent of their commitments before that it's agreed upon, whether that's internal or external. So, and project definition is really a continuous project, and it begins before that project is authorized, and it doesn't end until it's completed, and oftentimes the retired. Okay, so here's an example of a large project from initial concept to completion. So I just wanted to go through some of the signs. So here we have a milestone, the original concept, right? So here's another milestone. So we have some time initially spent, and these are supposed to be 5-year periods. Now, once again, this is a large project, so we're talking, a big project, whether it's something construction or a total revamp of procedures or the development of a product, whatever. So we have a feasibility study, and that can be really varied based on whether it's some kind of manufacturing or design or whatever. And then from that, you do a business case to see, is this going to be something that is worthwhile? So that business case is where you state your case about the outcome of the feasibility study and what it's going to take, and the likelihood of success and that type of stuff. So then you notice here after the business case, there's a line: early ideas are developed, project scope is defined, checklist is useful here, strategies formulated, cost and benefits estimated, and a draft business case is prepared. So that's kind of the end of this part. And then we're looking at, so we do the business case, and now we're looking at a risk assessment. So you're going to define what risks are there that could implement or that could affect this project. So then we're looking at a public inquiry. So depending on the project, you have to let people know. Once again, very much depends on the project, but this is a big project, probably implementing something into a community or whatever. So there is this public phase, and people can bring something forward that could affect the intentions of the project. Authorization, milestone, right? So at this point, you get a contract, you get the confirmation of the initial design. Organization, and then planning. So those two kind of go hand in hand. So should be a period of relative calm without many changes, but you're organizing things, you're planning. And then we move into this design phase, okay? And then procurement. So those are two large areas. They can overlap, right? Because you can not be done with the design, but you could be beginning to procure whatever is being designed here early, can be started before the complete design is done, depending upon the product or the project. And then fulfillment is very large here, and it definitely overlaps procurement. And then we have the test and then the handover, right? So this area here is the period of maximum activity. Changes arise from customer requests or complaints, design error corrections, suggestions or queries from subcontractors, suppliers, and work people. So this is kind of the meat of the project right here. And then with all the post-handover customer complaints have been corrected, the project is accurately defined and documented as finished. Okay. So that is an example of a large one. Just, it's not that you have to know all this, but just kind of can see the flow of something that's large. And one of the things back here, it says, checklists are useful. So I wanted to show you. So checklists are a good way of ensuring that important tasks aren't forgotten when you're evaluating. And using a project management system, your checklist will help assist you in maintaining accurate records and moving forward. So you can take that initial checklist that you have and then implement it into a project management system. So I wanted to show you an example of a checklist, and this is for a management change project. So this would be an internal change that's happening. And what I wanted you to notice here is the number scheme. So if you look at this, there's two major areas, right? Business analysis and business change. So those are the two big topics. And then within that, we have some subtopics that are these italicized. So business redesign, current state assessment, business user training, communication, project contract development. So if we look at this business analysis, the numbering scheme, so it's 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0. And then this main topic is 0, 1, 0, 100. And then all of the subcomponents, oops, I hit click, sorry. All of the subcomponents then are following that. They're part of the business analysis, and they're in the 100s, which is the business redesign. So 101, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And then we're still in the business analysis, but we're doing a different sub area. So that's a 200 level. So 201, 202, right? And then we're looking at business change. And so that begins with the 02 with the zeros. And then same thing, 100, 200, 300, and then all of the subtasks under there. So when you're setting up your project, it's good to think about how you're going to define these tasks, and using this numbering scheme in a checklist is a great way to set it up. And then when you start putting it into your project management system, you already have some kind of relationship built. All right. So project scope is where you set up the specifications of the project and define the requirements. And it's really important to clearly define that specs within the scope. It's important to define the way that the responsibility for work is to be shared among all parties. So one of the things is, who's doing what are they responsible for? So what are the items, and then who's responsible for that? This is a typo that should say scope of work. It has to be clear. Okay, so here's a sample specification flow for an internally funded project. You got a kickoff meeting where everybody's talking about it. You go into initial design, pre-production, second thoughts, okay, something's not working, or that's not how we want it to go. So then that leads into modifications. You deal with unforeseen problems, and then you evaluate afterwards. So all of those are things that you have to deal with as you're moving forward. Just a reminder, every project is different. However, the flow for projects within the same industry tend to be similar. So the flow depends on the type of project. A good definition before a contract increases the likelihood of a successful project. So those are just some basic items that I want you to understand. And I'm going to have a second PowerPoint on some specific kind of 5 phases and demystifying them. So that's it for this one. Thank you.